Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Gallagher, and I'm the Pro-Vice-Chancellor of Global Engagement and Entrepreneurship here at the University of Queensland. Before we begin, I did want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet, and pay my respects to their ancestors and their descendants. It genuinely brings me great pleasure to welcome you to the 2021 Research Development Impact RDI Conference hosted by the University of Queensland. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Conference Planning Committee who have put in tremendous effort into organising this event. Today's conference marks the 8th in a series, and it's remarkable to see the profound impact that it has had on the development sector over the past decade. I understand that we have close to 500 participants joining us from more than 25 countries across Australia, the Pacific, and Southeast Asia, making this conference a truly international cross-sector experience. Through this flagship conference, we aim to showcase research, initiatives, and innovations that will inform the future of sustainable development in the Pacific and Southeast Asia regions. This year, the conference holds special value because it's the first time in its history where the entire conference is taking place on a digital platform. And the theme holds special significance due to the changing and challenging time caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which I know will be felt acutely by many of you who are joining us from lockdowns today. The theme of the conference is Pathways Through Disruption, the future of sustainable development and recovery in the Pacific and Southeast Asia. And sessions are structured into 4 sub-themes, focusing on sustainable development, improved crisis preparation and management, collaborations and partnerships, and climate change adaptation. We will also be talking about the overarching cross-cutting themes of future-oriented, people-centred, and intersectionality, all relevant to what's happening in the Australian development sector and more broadly. We have an impressive range of speakers from across a wide range of industries and fields who will be joining us over the next 2 days, sharing their thoughts, knowledge, and insights with conference participants. It is our hope that this conference will spark the exchange of action-oriented ideas and future-focused discussions on building a sustainable future in the face of recent and anticipated future disruptions. We are very grateful to the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade for their tremendous support. DFAT has supported the attendance of 140 Australia Award Scholars, whom I hope that you will get an opportunity to hear from during the conference. I encourage all of our delegates to participate in the activities and discussions through the digital platforms Hoover and Zoom over the next 2 days. We know that solutions to development challenges will only emerge through dialogue, debate, and community building. So please take an active role and share your thoughts. It is now my great pleasure to welcome Professor Deborah Terry, AO, Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Queensland, to officially start the conference.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. Hello, everyone, and warm greetings from the University of Queensland. As I'm speaking to you from Brisbane, Australia, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and by paying my respects to their ancestors and descendants. On behalf of all of us here at UQ, I'd like to say welcome. We are delighted to be hosting the Research for Development Impact Conference, or RDI 2021. Of course, we would have much preferred to have welcomed all delegates here to our beautiful St. Lucia campus, but considering the still very unpredictable nature of travel restrictions, both here in Australia and across our region, I think the organisers made a very wise decision to hold RDI 2021 as an entirely virtual conference. I'd also like to praise the organisers for assembling such an impressive program that I'm sure will keep you engaged over the next 2 days. The presenters and panellists include leading academics from universities across Australia, as well as the leaders from a range of Australian government agencies and NGOs that are committed to development. We also have some very prominent voices from our region who will share their perspectives on how we can convert our research into impactful programs on the ground in nations across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Importantly, through the discussions over the next 2 days, we'll be dipping into different perspectives from around the region and on a wide range of development topics. We'll hear from researchers with expertise in climate change adaptation, ecosystem restoration, education, food and water security, cybersecurity, sustainable tourism, aid effectiveness, emergency healthcare, and of course, the impacts of the pandemic. I'm very proud to say that the University of Queensland has a long and rich history of participating in and leading international development initiatives. In fact, across our faculties, schools, institutes and research centres, we have been participating in international development activities for over 25 years. While these programs have been incredibly varied in their scope, they all have one thing in common. They have consistently focused on building the capacity of people to contribute to the sustainable development of their own local community and their nations. While we're very proud of what we've achieved in the past, we're also intent on doing even more in the future. And that ambition to do more has really been the impetus for our new Global Development Impact Plan that we launched just a few weeks ago. Through that plan, we're seeking to marshal all of the development expertise that exists within UQ and better coordinate it. So we're improving our impact across our teaching, research, program delivery, and advisory services. Ultimately, we want UQ to be recognised as the go-to Australian institution for development expertise and impact. As an institution, one of our 3 strategic pillars is to enrich communities, not just here in Australia, but all around the world. The pandemic has been a timely reminder to us all that we're all global citizens living in a truly interconnected world. So I hope that one of the positive things to emerge from this very difficult period is that it will encourage more of us to work in collaborative global partnerships to find solutions to our shared challenges. On a final note, I'd like to join Jess in congratulating the organising committee from the Global Engagement and Entrepreneurship team based here at UQ, who have worked in close partnership with the RDI network to develop this very impressive program. I'd also like to thank our gold and silver sponsors who have generously supported the staging of this conference: the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, the Crawford Fund, OSCE Interactive, and the Australian Council for International Development. And I'd also like to acknowledge the support of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade for sponsoring 140 Australia Awards scholars and giving them the opportunity to attend and present at the conference. I trust that you will all find the conference enlightening, and I hope that it sparks new ideas, new collaborations, and new ways of working that will contribute to development impact throughout our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Terry. We now move to our first panel session on the big picture perspectives from the front line. A very warm welcome to our moderator, Ms. Whitney Yip, who's Acting Network and Partnership Management for the RDI Network. I wish everybody a successful and fruitful conference. Over to you, Whitney.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher and Professor Terry. Our next speakers will contextualise and set the scene for the following 2 days of knowledge sharing, with the theme Pathways Through Disruption and the future of sustainable development and recovery in the Pacific and Southeast Asia. What better way than to start by listening to our neighbours? Our speakers today will be Sharon Bhagwan-Rolls, a second-generation Fiji Island feminist, currently in a technical advisor role at Shifting the Power Coalition. She works at the intersection of gender, media, communications, and peace. We also have Carolyn Kitione, a young Fijian woman mobilising other young Pacific women and community leaders in her role as regional young women's focal point. She is also at Shifting the Power Coalition. We also have Emmeline Siale Ililohia, Executive Director of the Pacific Island Association of Non-Governmental Organisations, also known as PIENGO. She has over 10 years of experience in promoting sustainable growth and social development in the Pacific region. We also have Berta Antonietta, a researcher in Timor-Leste, briefing international agencies on political and economic issues. She is also the founder of Grupo Feminista Iha Timor, currently involved in Movimento Letras Literature Group and Bewberry Niariska Women Art Collective Group. We also have a very special video from some of the regional staff at Fred Hollow's Foundation, where we hear from Dr. Fukwin Tan, Tokyo Bak, Dr. Maria Victoria Rondaras, also known as Dr. Mavi, and Dr. Suzani Barros. We'll also have Saradi Dodson, Director of Research at Fred Hollow's, here to answer questions from the pre-recording. To get started, let's hear from Sharon. Bula Sharon.
Yandranaka Whitney, thank you for this opportunity. Should I just keep going?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Whitney, even before COVID-19 unveils the multiple socio-economic challenges, including the fragility of our Pacific health infrastructure, we were already a region living with a climate crisis and the lowest level of women's political representation, not just in parliament, but in local and community government and traditional systems of decision-making. But as Pacific feminists, we have been organizing to redesign the table. Since 2016, the Shifting the Power Coalition's network of close to 100,000 grassroots, intergenerational, and inclusive movements in 7 Pacific Island Forum countries is working so that women with disabilities, young women-led organizations, and rural and coastal women's networks can use our collective power, influence, and leadership through a triple nexus approach based on our lived realities. With ActionAid Australia, a humanitarian organization that works from feminist principles and a co-founding partner of the coalition, we use a feminist funding model for rapid response in times of crisis and ensuring resources and support reaches women when they need it, to deliberate, to participate, design, and deliver what works for diverse women in local communities. Our 3 partners in Vanuatu led the first all-Indigenous women-led response to Category 5 TC Harold last year, and early this year, following TC Yasa in Fiji, 6 diverse first responders across our main islands in Fiji provided emergency relief, convened safe spaces so that rural women could determine what was best for them in terms of protection and engagement. So 5 years on as the coalition, we continue to build collaboration. Partnerships are not projects. We amplify the vital local voice of women, but not as vulnerable beneficiaries. We learn and build on Indigenous and local knowledge. There's no longer room for parachute responses or cut and paste advocacy on our behalf. The coalition's work is based on our partners' priorities, collectively engaging young women's leadership and disability rights, and taking an intersectional approach that goes beyond the generic approach to gender, as if all our women's experiences are the same. we develop research and documentation methodology that works at the local level, recognizing the diversity within groups, in particular when working with young women and women with disabilities, building on local experience and expertise. And it's essential to do this to curb the reliance on external experts determining what's best for us, and instead investing in us to lead, whether it's local GESI programs or humanitarian crisis response. It may take a little bit more time, but it's locally owned. It also means tackling notions of development financing power, enabling more South-South collaborative learning and recognizing and building on our local innovation and expertise with appropriate and accessible technology. Whitney, we've got more than 25 years of policy commitments, Security Council resolutions, and policy treaties that affirm gender equality and women's rights. But it's time for a more representative, intersectional, and inclusive political space. Equitable partnership models building on our feminist coalitions, bringing more diverse women to sit within local, national, and regional governance structures to allow for an inclusive, accountable, meaningful process and result. Feminist funding models and feminist policy models to ensure that at least 50% of any local funding is supporting women-led organization, women's rights, with dedicated resourcing for young women, women with disabilities, and the LGBT community. And to build on our coalitions and networks that are working, recognizing that these may not just be one, because we need the diversity of networks to tackle the multiple socio and economic political challenges we're living with now. As Pacific feminists, we're weaving our own maps, creating our spaces, but it's also time for the development sector to redesign the table. Thank you, Whitney.
Sharon, thank you. I think that is absolutely very correct, and I believe that yes, more funding and having a quota of 50% funding towards locally led programs is a move towards. Bula Carolyn.
Bula Whitney, and good morning to all our attendees. Today we'll be looking at young people working together and looking at young women's leadership and how we can resource young people to do better in the development sector. Every day, young women and men are proving their leadership in ways that have an impact in the world that we live in. We don't have to look too far to realize the truth of that statement. The last few years have proven that we're not leaders of tomorrow because we're already leading today. You know, in the climate change movement, human rights, gender equality, we are here. And yet at the same time, we're not. Because too often we're invited to spaces just to tick the box because, you know, the powers that be recognize our ability to organize, but our full involvement in decision-making is not often appreciated. And it's even come to the point where outcome statements will ignore everything that we've been saying. This is despite the fact that what we say and the experiences that we bring to the table is a reflection of the world that we live in. As young women within the Shifting the Power Coalition, we've come together recognizing that we deserve more than to be dismissed. We recognize the uniqueness of women-led coalitions such as this one, because it grants us that intergenerational learning space to understand what's been done and what can be done. It's recognizing that as a collective, we have the power to change the narratives. When we talk about supporting diverse young women and young people in leadership and decision-making, we're not asking you to throw money at us or invite us to apply for funding whose criteria is so narrow that it immediately disqualifies us from the pool. We're asking you to listen and to understand what it is that we're saying. We're telling you to work with us and respect that our lived realities have provided us too with the wisdom to create and innovate solutions that work for us. We're asking you to recognize the existing power dynamics, not only within the sociocultural environment that we must work in, but also within the structures that donor development grantee relationships are modeled after. As young women leaders within the Shifting the Power Coalition, we have come to understand that our issues are similar no matter what country we live in. We lack access to proper healthcare services, to ICT services and protection. We face high rates of violence in a region with the lowest level of women's representation in leadership across all levels, from the community to national. Financial independence is often not afforded to those of us in rural and coastal communities because the burden of unpaid domestic work has fallen onto us, and it's been exacerbated by the current pandemic. LGBT communities and women with disability are not present in conversations or decision-making that must reflect and benefit their needs. But just because we face similar issues does not mean we are the same. It is dangerous to assume the solutions that work for one will work for another. That a development model that is fine-tuned for one can be tuned for another. To lump us all into one big homogeneous group is to disregard our individual experiences as movement organizers, as diverse women with diverse needs, and as leaders actively challenging the structures that do not welcome us. We're redesigning the table, but we're also intentional with our invitation. We are creating a space that welcomes the diversity that is missing from existing spaces. As young Pacific women, we are telling you that when a system is not working for us, work with us to change it. Be an equal partner that recognizes the diversity and wealth of experience that we bring to the table. Work with us to shift the power from the mat to the policy table. Vinaka.
Vinaka, Carolyn, that is absolutely so powerful. And like our conference theme, let's shift this power and walk, build a pathway through all of these different disruptions. Now we are going to hear from Siale. Maloi Lele, Siale.
Malo Lele, everyone. Pula Vinaka. Greetings from very cloudy Suva. It's a great opportunity to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I'm not gonna repeat what our two great speaker have shared with us this morning. I'll concentrate a little bit around the whole notions of rethinking the development models and the development agenda that has been a part of the development discourse that we had witnessed in our region. And I suppose I'll try to link that into to the theme of this conference, where we're looking at the pathway through disruptions. But I suppose the challenge that we are faced, because we look at the pathway of development from an island ocean lens, where the pathway in the ocean is uncertain, and there is no clear directions, and can only be navigated by special skills of traditional knowledge and understanding. That unfortunately that we still see that huge gap when it comes to where do we take those reality on the ground, and how does that feature at the policy level. And the Australian university work in the Pacific kind of for us look towards that support through research work, to make that link, in how the reality on the ground in the so many research work that they have done to inform the white paper or whatever the policy paper that they are informing Australian government or New Zealand government or any of our development partners government, in terms of translating that to the policy or foreign policy that support our Pacific region. Huge gap. And this is where I'm still thinking, for over how many years, 25, 30 years, that we see the presence of our Australian research work in the Pacific, and we still find that the bridging the gap between the development of our community in terms of them taking or supported to take a lead in deciding or making decisions on what is best for their livelihood, what is best for their community, what is best for their natural resources, for example, that could build that resilience within our society to the disruptions. And I think that Sharon had made reference that COVID has just, passed by in our region. But some of these disruptions has been there, and we have seen that in the development model, which has in the past probably 10 years that we have seen the shift from a economic growth to an economic growth that support more into business oriented and has undermined our social net, our social services that should reach our communities through health, through education, social protections for our vulnerable communities. And COVID-19 had put us into that test. And we had seen that we are in a vulnerable positions. The other one that we had seen is that the level of debt that our government has been pushed to make some of those decisions, difficult decisions, and we ended up having this problem that we struggle with. So I would say that if I have to see something change, it would be to have a locally led, supported initiative that Piango had been engaged with our partners, Humanitarian Advisory Group in Australia, ECFIT as part of our affiliated member, to have a practice-oriented research work where it's supposed to inform our work, not to inform the donors. Supposed to get the evidence from community to inform our work. And what we have seen is the gap between some of this information that are informing our development partners to define what they want to influence us, and very distant from how we see ourselves. So we are looking at what the two previous speakers are locally led initiatives in terms of research, action research to inform our practices. But at the same time, what we also want to see now is that we want to follow where the dollar sign goes, because that's problematic. And it's something that is not culturally comfortable within our region to ask that difficult questions about where do you place the money? And we have seen so many declarations of commitment made by our government, made by our leaders, even, pushing some of those commitments to be shared by New Zealand, Australia, and whoever our donors that support us. But what we have seen is that if that commitment is not being translated to some dollar sign that goes to community, goes to civil society to make those change, then there is no guarantee that those commitments will be real. And I think this is where what we want to see is that our research work need to have that traditional cultural context in our own lens, not from someone to come from outside and interpret it for us, and to make sure that those commitments are translated to practice. Thank you.
Oh, Malo Saleh, I absolutely agree with your passion, and we need to absolutely involve and support from the ground up. Now let's head over to Berta. Bon dia, Berta.
Hi, bon dia. Hi, bon dia. Hi, can people hear me, listen to me?
Yes, we can all hear you and see you.
Yes. Okay, hi, I'm from Timor-Leste. It's a newly country in the 20th century, also a small island in the Southeast Asia. So I agree with the three of the speakers, which excellently pointed out about community-led, grassroots level led organizing in situation of crisis. So I would like to just tell you a story that in March and April, this year, it was a huge flood in Timor-Leste, which caused 20 people losing their lives and a lot of destruction and house destruction happening in the capital and also in Timor-Leste. So this is because of climate change, and there's not a lot of and I'm very sure there are other small islands that actually in this panel facing similar situation also regarding rising of sea levels and other issues. So I totally agree with the three of the speakers and how community-led grassroots level organizing is actually the way to go. And I would like to just talk about how international agencies, also Australian Development Agency, could work in could actually operate in this situation where the local grassroots actually come together to organize. So in March and April, what happened was a lot of the international organization left because during COVID, a lot of them left. So the community, the local grassroots people left with only few of the UN workers and also Australian Development Aid workers. So we have to organize ourselves. We are left with the situation in which we have to learn to organize ourselves. And because of the strengthened of independence movement 20 years ago, a solidarity network in Timor-Leste is actually very, very strong. So in a second, we started to mobilize everyone to organize fundings, organize GoFund from abroad to actually fled in. So how did we find after that we found out that without the top-down decisions, without the decision, if the decision is actually coming from the community organizers themselves, it's actually more effective. And most of the money actually going to the affected people instead of actually stuck between the system, if you know what I mean. I was asked also to talk about how Australia Aid Development could actually work in this situation. I think Australian aid development workers and Australian people should advocate for their own government to at least be mindful, be environmentally conscious in their own mass production, in their coal-dependent production country, so that it doesn't actually create a mass. This is not only for Australia, but this is also for highly industrialized country to actually be environmentally conscious of their consumption could actually cause a small island in the Pacific and Southeast Asia like Timor-Leste facing climate change, flooding and issues such that. But also, I would like also to say that when the local grassroots community solidarity network led the organization, the international organizations such as from abroad should not come and highlight it. They should leave the local community to be the front line. Also also, even though the money coming from the international organization, it is just the money. Money should not equate people's effort, people's community organizing, people's hard working and their commitment. For me, when the international what happened was when the international organization coming in, they should not be the parade, like, okay, this for example, this flooding relief coming from for example, UN agency, blah blah blah. It shouldn't be that. It should be the local organization should be the one who take the credit, if that's clear. So that's pretty much my introduction. So it's just the thing is like the local just to brief it's just the local grassroots community organizing is the way to go. The international organization should not take the credit. Money is not the solution. people in the ground knows more than actually people in Washington or those who are making decision. And please, if any students here, advocate to your government to be environmentally conscious and less coal dependent and in your economic development. Thank you.
Obrigada, Berta. Absolutely agree. How do we use our privilege and our spaces that we occupy to ensure and take on the burden of all that extra work so that you and local grassroots communities can get on with the work and not have to worry about all those other bureaucratic things. So now we have a really special video from Fred Hollows. And just before that, to introduce the video, we have Sarah D. Dodson, Director of Research from Fred Hollows. Hi, Sarah D.
Hi, Whitney. How are you going? Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. I'm joining today from Wurundjeri country on behalf of the Fred Hollows Foundation. The Fred Hollows Foundation works, as you may know, across around 20 countries globally, and we have the mission of ending avoidable blindness, particularly in low resource settings. Like many other areas of healthcare, eye care services and programs have been significantly disrupted over the world over the past year and a half. And I have some of my colleagues on this video that we'll play for you now to share some of their insights and experiences delivering eye care during the pandemic. Enjoy the video.
Working in Vietnam last year, there were several times the COVID-19 occurs in our community, such as in Da Nang City in Hai Dương province. The school eye health projects in these cities had experienced the disruption due to the COVID outbreak. Many eye screening events and health education sessions had to be postponed due to the lockdown requirement by the local authorities.
There are a range of target groups such as project beneficiary, the local community, and particularly those who are marginalized like women, people with disability, and ethnic minorities. I think they had some difficulty accessing to eye health services due to the COVID, particularly due to the COVID-related lockdown and travel restriction, and the fear of the disease itself, and thus they hesitated to access to necessary services.
In the top list is the affecting the outreach. Outreach is stopped by the effect of the COVID-19 due to lockdown mainly in the capital, in the district. So we have a lot of expired medication drops, and we don't have the new medication coming due to lockdown.
Community screenings were stopped, and all ophthalmologists and the eye health teams were mobilized into COVID-stricken health facilities. The public hospitals were converted into COVID infirmaries, and so nobody was left to take care of the eye health needs of the people of these communities.
We have tried some ways for school screening. In some places, when children come back to school, the project team had to gather students in a smaller group, for example, less than 20 students each time for eye screening. And we also send a letter to the parents to guide students to self-check their vision with a simple visual check at home, and then inform the result to the school health staff.
In the community, we have groups of people with disability, self-help groups, and they indeed help each other to access to services. And for the implementing partners, the National Program for Eye Health has developed a guideline related to prevention of COVID-19 cross-contamination so that people can still provide services in a safe way.
Here we practice social distancing among the people. Also, every person needs to wear a mask when they're here around stay around the community. Also, we are in hospital, mainly in hospital, we are practicing triage before OPD consultation. We are doing triage to screen the COVID patient, and also the hospital take the policy to reduce the number of consultation in the OPD or in the clinic, and the surgery. So just we are offering to the emergency cases, but before the surgery, we need to do swab or COVID test before the surgery.
We set up a public page called Lusog Mata, or Healthy Eyes in English, and it contained educational materials with self-help, vision and eye checks. It was a way for people to message us and be linked to eye health professionals. In turn, we reached out to the latter, who used telemedicine for consultation and triaged persons who needed face-to-face or more in-depth medical encounter. And it worked. People got their spectacles and we managed care for most of them.
Thank you to Tokyo and Drs. Falk, Marvi and Suzanne for sharing those insights. It's been really heartening to observe over the course of the pandemic how strong local leadership, sharing knowledge, following public health advice and innovating in big and small ways has really worked so well across our region to keep people safe and ensure that communities continue to receive the healthcare that they need. We are concerned, though, that existing barriers and equities in eye care access have been further deepened during the pandemic. So one of the initiatives that we're engaging in at the Foundation is in partnership with our local healthcare partners across several countries. We're conducting some research to better understand the impacts of COVID-19 on already marginalised, disadvantaged and excluded populations and identify opportunities to enhance access for these groups, both during and beyond the pandemic. And we look forward to sharing the results of that work in due course. Thank you for your attention, and on behalf of the Fred Hollows Foundation, we hope you enjoy the conference. Back to you, Whitney.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was an incredible video. Thank you to Dr. Huynh, Tokyo, Dr. Randaris, and Dr. Barras. Thank you, and thank you, Sarah, for putting that video together. Now, we only have a short time for questions, so we might only be able to hear from 1 or 2 people, but I do encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A box in Zoom. So let's see if we have questions already. Let me have a quick look. So I think I have one from Suckling, and I would encourage any of the panelists here to jump in and answer. What is the best mechanism to ensure that donations don't harm the community or destroy the community culture? Siale, you'd like to answer this question? Please go ahead.
Thank you. That's a very tough question because it comes from the notions that we, of all the work that we do, we have to make sure that we do no harm to our community. But this is where we have to really look into where do we want to shift in terms of the risks. Yeah, and it's not just for donations, but also for funding. That we have this whole conversations around, the criteria that attach to donor funding that often, I think our speaker from the young people had referred to that in terms of making sure that we, put our money into the community to respond to the need that they had. But those decisions has to come from the community. And it's interesting to see that there's a lot of goodwill that need to be there in terms of how do we trust our community that the fund or the support that we had to give them does make a response to the need and the things that they need. And there's a lot of trusting relationship that need to go into that. There's a lot of the notions of us that do contribute or do give funds that we are willing to share that risk and not make that donations with come from a judgmental thinking that someone will run away with the money and not put into what they needed. So those are the kind of relationship that we do need to build and understand our community. If that's something that I can contribute to the discussions and respond to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Siale. So I think we have one more question. And again, if you don't get time for your question, I do hope and encourage our panelists to stick around for the rest of the conference, and you can get in touch with them through our conference platform. So I think this question is for Berta. Nanyambita, I'm sorry if I've said your name wrong, has asked to learn a little bit more about how foreign aid societies affect grassroots/community decision making.
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. Again, it is first. So how we see the system is already designed that the community actually come in the end. And we need to change that. We need the beginning. The community needs to actually decide it. For example, they decide which area, what are they going to do, what kind of method they are going to decide. Not international organization write their terms of reference and then share it to local NGOs and local grassroots movement to actually competing for the funds. So there is one problem. There's one huge issue for that. It's called when I just want to highlight. Sometimes our good intention might not going to result in a good way. This is a clear example. So sometimes when the community and the funding coming in, there are many of local grassroots actually doing similar doing similar work. But then sometimes when the money coming in, instead of actually working together, but it divided, it breaking the trust between the grassroots group level because they are competing for the money. So how can we actually, but if the community decide and they approach the international organization for funding, it's actually better because you promote the community trust and working together. But if you write the terms of reference from Washington or from Melbourne or Brisbane and then share it like, look, we have $10,000 for this specific topic, for this specific issue, and then 10 of the grassroots actually competing for it. Imagine 10 of the grassroots who are competing, there will be a competition there and there will be trust issues there because it's regarding money. So we have to actually be really, really mindful why community-led, why the decision-making needs to come from the community, because then we will actually promote the trust, we will promote the solidarity between the groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Berta. And I'm going to start wrapping it up here. And so if you have any other questions, please pop them into our discussion boards. Please get in contact with the panelists. I really want to thank you to Sharon, Carolyn, Siale, Berta, and all of the staff at Fred Hollows and Sarity. I think I speak for all of us attendees as well, is that what a powerful and momentous moment for all of us here at the conference to hear from all of you. I really appreciate the time that you have taken to tell us about what is going on in your region. Thank you. As you know, this year's conference theme is Pathways Through Disruption, and we have 4 sub-themes under this, just as Dr. Jessica Gallagher spoke about this morning. If you are using the agenda that is in a PDF format, you will see the sub-themes or tracks side by side. If you are using the agenda on the Hoover app, you will see them listed one after another, and up the top of the app, you can filter the day's sessions by tracks or by keywords. So you just need to type in a certain word and click search. Now, before we jump into our concurrent sessions, if you are having any trouble, please email RDI Conference 2021 at uq.edu.au, or you can text or call our WhatsApp helpline on area code +61 404 338 643. Captions have been provided for each session, and each tech facilitator will be able to help you enable them in each session. This conference has been preceded by the Student Forum, which we delivered yesterday. We had an excellent array of speakers, and in particular, we'd like to thank our silver sponsor, the Crawford Fund, who organised a panel on agricultural research for food and nutrition security. The Crawford Fund's mission is to increase Australia's engagement in international agricultural research, development and education for the benefit of developing countries and Australia. Find out more at their website, www.crawfordfund.org, or follow their Twitter @CrawfordFund. Having said that, the RDI Network also has a Twitter, which you can find at @RDI Network. So I encourage all of you to post on social media about the conference. Our hashtags are #2021 RDI Conference, #UQ, and #Pathways Through Disruption. Now, a quick reminder to all speakers, moderators, and chairs, please keep on time as the sessions will automatically end at the scheduled time. Alrighty, so now there's a couple of minutes before our next session, so grab a quick drink of tea or water or whatever it is that you'd like to reach for, and head on over to the Hoover agenda and choose your first concurrent to attend. Enjoy the 2021 RDI Conference.